Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about self-portraits or portraiture in general today. Um, you should have already taken the creative type quiz and determined what creative type that you are, because we're going to be basing this self-portrait off of exploring that creative type and drawing yourself in the form of a self-portrait portraying that creative type. Okay, so I've attached some handouts on how to draw faces and including some videos as well on correct facial proportions, so you have like some basic knowledge on where facial features fall on the face. So make sure that you refer to those if you're interested in drawing a self-portrait. All right, I want to take you a little bit through the process that I use when I get started on an artwork, and this is just my process. This has worked for me. But you might find that different things work for you. So but I just want to show you what works for me, because it's important to find what works for you, whatever that might be. So I'm using watercolor for my self-portrait. So I've set up my palette, but I've also created over here in my sketchbook a palette showing me what the colors are, so I am not confused, because you can tell like it's hard here, especially in the areas of the blues, to really know which blue is which. But if I come over here, I have the exact order of the paints with labels, so I know where I can find those colors in my palette. All right, once I've done the palette layout, I've created a value chart of all of my colors. This is really going to help me when I need to find a certain color to know where to go. Okay, so I've done this with every color. Started with pretty much the most saturated, no water at all, to almost completely watered down. Okay, and then over here I also made some combinations of colors just to see how I can create some secondary colors that aren't directly from the tube. I also mixed two complementary colors together for my neutrals, and I also created some chromatic black. So this is really going to help me when I need to find certain colors to know what they look like out of the tube and mixed with water. So this is just a good organizational skill before you get started on an artwork, no matter what medium it is, whether it's color pencil or paint or pastel, to lay your colors out first to see what they look like on the surface that you're working on. The next thing I did was create a visual journal or some visual notes on what it is I'm actually doing. So I'm portraying myself as the artist because that was my creative type. So I've written that out, and then I looked and read through the description and kind of pulled out some things that I thought were important. And I did this in a way that is aesthetically pleasing to me, because that's just how I work. So you can see all of those things. And once I kind of had things laid out, then I started brainstorming down here of ideas, colors that I might use, imagery that I might use for my final. Okay. And then I needed to find some reference images. So I actually took some pictures of myself as the artist that I'm going to use as reference pictures. So this is the one I'm going to mainly use, and that is because I want it to have a realistic quality. So I'm not just going to imagine what I look like. I'm going to photograph so I can go back and refer, so I know that the proportions are correct for my facial features. Okay. I'm also going to be referencing a human rib cage, so I need to look at that. So I found a picture and I saved it. Try your best to save actual photographs, not other people's drawings. Like, this is an anatomical rendering that I can use and then transform how I wish. I would not pull from other people's actual artwork, pull from actual photographs that you're going to manipulate. That's the best way to go about that. I know that I want my hair to be like blowing, but I couldn't actually take a picture of myself like in a fan. So the next best thing would be just to find what hair actually looks like as it blows. So I'll actually use this image to reference what hair looks like while it's blowing in the wind, and I'll actually add that to my face. So I actually have a reference for that. And then I also wanted to reference like I wanted to add some like holes to my shirt that aren't actually there. So again, I need to find a reference so I can get a realistic feel of what that looks like. So if you're going for something that has a certain aspect of realism to it, it's really important that you find that reference material so that you can visualize that and then put it down on your surface for your artwork. And then finally, after I did all of those other planning steps, I started my sketch. Okay? And my sketch is just really compositional, just putting down what I want my final drawing to pretty much look like. I'm not really that interested in details. I'm not super interested that things are correctly proportionate. I'm more interested in where are things falling on the page. And then I also kind of just laid out some of the color palette that I wanted to use for my skin tones, and I mixed those up onto my sketch. So, you know, you can see here, like I started the rib cage but didn't finish it just because there's really no need. I know that on my final, that's where it's going to go. And now I'm ready to start my final process. So something that I did before I started was I decided what I wanted the skin tones to look like, and I wrote them down. So if I run out of them while I'm working, I know how to remake them. It's very important because, you know, you might be using that yellow ochre, Alzarian crimson mix, but if you didn't write it down and you're trying to remake it, you're probably not going to get it exactly right. So take notes as you work. That works great for me. And then I always, as I work, test out the color on paper before I lay it on my final, because you never really know what it's going to look like until it actually hits the paper. Okay, and then here you can see I started my final based on my sketch. So again, your sketch is just, here's my sketch, lay them next to each other, and then here I start to work on my final. Okay, you can see where I changed some things. I decided I wanted the hair to be blowing. Here I didn't have that idea yet. So it's okay to allow your idea to evolve from your sketch, and then, you know, evolve to something different on your final. So you can see where those skin tones are laying, how I'm layering my colors. I have everything laid out in pencil first, and now I'm just ready to apply all the things that I've done in preparation for my final work. So now you have a basic idea of how my brain works when I begin an artwork. That's not to say that that is the right way or the wrong way or any way to do it. It's just the way that I do it, and that is what works for me. And that is something that I've discovered throughout my career as an artist. It's not something that I just started doing. It's something that I've developed. So you need to develop what works for you. You might work more fluidly, and you might find that you need to, in order to start something, you need to just dive right in and then maybe plan as you're working. You might be someone that needs to plan everything up front. I'm a little bit more like that. I like to plan up front, and then I will continue to plan and look back and evolve as I go. I've also found that when I work, I need basically uninterrupted silence. I can listen to quiet music, but I can't be watching TV. I can't be talking to somebody else while I work. I have to be honed in and focused and let my brain just focus on that one thing. Trying to multitask while I work usually ends up in a disaster, and that disaster can be seen in the work itself. It's usually not my best. So if you're struggling, you're like, I'm not sure why my work's not turning out the way I want my work. Maybe you need to reevaluate the way that you are working and find those things that work for you in order to be the best artist that you can be.